Thanks so much, Nicole. Welcome to day one of EcoTrack. We're really excited to welcome Laura Meyer from the Washington State Conservation Commission for our first presentation today. Laura is going to share about technical assistance taboo, talking about TA in terms that resonate. And just a quick background on Laura. She's the communications manager at the State Conservation Commission, where she's worked since 2013. She has a master's degree in environmental communications and a bachelor's in film and video. And prior to her current job, she worked as a communications consultant for conservation organizations, wrote a regional newspaper, and worked with Michigan Sea Grant to promote fisheries heritage and resource conservation in the Northeast region of Michigan, where she grew up. So please join me in welcoming Laura, and feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Nikki, and thank you, Nicole. It's wonderful to be virtually with all of you today. I look forward to when I can do this in person. And I hope you're ready to have some fun. Hopefully we'll have some fun actually talking about technical assistance today. And in that spirit of fun, you'll notice that the title of this session and some of what inspired it is about the game of Taboo. I don't know if any of you have played, but you can tell from the color scheme of the game on this opening slide that it came out in the late 80s. And it's kind of like charades. So you're in teams and you're given a stack of cards and there's a word on the top. And you have to get your teammates to guess that word. But instead of acting it out like you would with charades, you have a list of words underneath that word that you're trying to get them to guess that you can't say, and it's words that you typically associate with that term that you're trying to get them to guess. And if you say one of the words that's on that list of taboo words, you get buzzed, you lose your turn. So as an example of that, like say you had a card and you were trying to get somebody to guess the word beach. All these words underneath: ocean, sand, vacation, sunbathe, seashells. Those are the words that you couldn't use to describe that word that you're trying to get your teammate to guess. Cork, you couldn't say wine, champagne, celebrate, pop, New Year's Eve. Duck, you could not say. Bird, water, web, Donald, mallard. And I started thinking about, well, what if the card was technical assistance? Because I look at these words and there's nothing that flashy about the word cork, about the word beach. But all the words underneath it that they think that you will normally associate with them, they're kind of fun. They make you think of memories, times you've been on vacation at the beach, times you drank champagne and celebrated New Year's Eve, or even like watching cartoons and watching Donald Duck. There's all these connotations that are pretty positive and fun that come to mind with these really pretty basic words. And so why, when I was thinking about, I know it's a silly thing to think about, but why when I was thinking about this with technical assistance, when I thought of the words that, and even I am guilty of using when I talk about what technical assistance is, it's boring. It doesn't reflect the magnitude and importance and heart that goes into what conservation districts do, which falls under this umbrella of technical assistance. It's things like planning, BMPs, information, tools, knowledge, and that's great, but it doesn't have that heart. It doesn't have that excitement. It doesn't really stand out for what it truly, truly is. And it's too important for us to be using language that doesn't get people excited to invest in it and to become part of it. And that's really the focus of what we're going to be doing today. And it's that we're exploring that there are more meaningful ways that we can talk about technical assistance to get it the attention it deserves. And I'm assuming that for those of you who have showed up here, you wouldn't be here unless you didn't believe this too. And the bad news is that I don't feel like I have all the right answers for you today. But the good news is I think that between all of us who have showed up, I see we have 55 attendees. And like many of the themes of the keynote speakers this morning, we can learn from each other. I want to harness all that knowledge and creativity and experience that we all have collectively to try to help us come up with some better ways to talk about technical assistance in a way that really gets at that attention. And so I'm going to give you a cue right now that we are going to be doing some online polling or text polling throughout most of this session today. So if you have a second monitor, you're probably set. You can just have that second monitor and sign into a web address that I'm going to give you in a couple minutes to participate in these polls. You can also participate via text. So you might want to go grab a cell phone right now or any other kind of electronic device that you can go online or text from. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be brainstorming through a series of polling questions that are going to range from fairly basic to almost, it may seem silly, but the whole point is that we want to come up with some really new ways to talk about technical assistance that is beyond what you always see. You know, if you look at technical assistance, if you Google it, conservation technical assistance, you'll see a description. But I don't know about you, but for me, I haven't seen anything that really captures what that looks like and what it feels like and what it really means for conservation and the people that are served when they are engaging with technical assistance. And we really want something that's going to make people's ears perk up, because the other thing that we hear at the commission is the agency that often is trying to consolidate state budget requests in order to fund conservation districts in the communities that you serve at the level that is needed. Technical assistance consistently, year after year, is the top priority, the most underfunded piece of conservation district work. And so the more we can talk about this in new ways, we've been talking about it for over 75 years. How do we talk about it and reintroduce what this really means in a way that gets at the funding that our communities need as well? And so before I launch these series of polls that we'll ask you to participate in, I've got 3 tips that I'm going to ask that you keep in mind so we can come up with some new ways of talking about technical assistance. And the first is to really think out of the box. Think beyond what we've already used to talk about these technical assistance, but some really creative ways of reframing what it really means. And part of the reason to do that is that there have been studies done on some ad campaigns. And when they've run 2 ads for the same product, one of them is really basic, to the point, this is what it is. And the second version is really creative, out of the box thinking. The highly creative ad campaign typically gets nearly double the sales impact. And there's no reason to think that that same way of thinking won't translate into what we're trying to do for conservation technical assistance, because a lot of this really is about either engaging people with conservation and the activity of technical assistance itself, but also really about getting people to invest in it and support it, for our partners to see the value of it, for our legislators to see the return on investment that's made when you invest in TA. So I want to keep that in mind of the importance and impact that there can be when you really think out of the box, creative ways of presenting technical assistance. The second thing is to think about your target audience as a filter. So there's all these different ways that we could talk about technical assistance. I mean, it looks completely different from one landowner to the next, from one district to the next, what that really looks like, what phase of conservation or resource management they're in on their property. It can just look really different. So there's a lot of ways we could talk about it. And sometimes that can sort of slow us down when we're trying to make an impact with our messaging, because we say too much and people drown in it. And so if you really think about your target audience and use them as a filter that takes all the words that you could say about technical assistance into just one focused message. And as an example of that, this is an image of one of my game closets, because I love playing board games, like old school board games. And you'll also notice I'm a dinosaur nerd, but that's neither here nor there. If I was trying to get you to play a game with me, I wouldn't just say like, board games are great, they're so much fun. I would think about you as an individual and pick a game to really pitch specific to what I thought would be the most likely game I could get you to play. So for example, if I knew you would be a very wordy person, you like crossword puzzles, you just love reading, I might just focus on trying to get you to play Scrabble. Still a game, but it's very tailored to you specifically. Or if you're like my sister, who's really into like, I don't play this game with her anymore because she's really into like domination, making the most money, putting you out of business and conquering the planet. I would ask my sister Emily to play Monopoly with me, which I will never do again because I always lose. Or if you are more theatrical, creative, you like to draw, I would ask you to play Cranium and talk about how awesome that game is. So it's just an example of if I was talking about technical assistance, for example, to a funder, I might not just spend that much time talking in general about what TA is. I would talk more about what aspect of technical assistance is most going to engage that specific audience member with it and get them to want to support it. And the third thing is, and I think maybe this could be most important because I feel like when I mentioned earlier that part about heart maybe being what's missing, is to reflect on your own personal experience of when you were the one providing technical assistance, of when you witnessed somebody else, your colleague, successfully providing technical assistance, when you saw ground break on a project and knowing all the months of work that led up to it and how important that was, like what that really felt like, what it really means, the people that were involved, the relationships that were formed, the amount of expertise and just care that was given to the people and their properties, what it felt like to share information with people that maybe even changed their lives, changed their property, changed their operation. Just really think about those really that personal time where you really experienced that, and how kind of hold on to the creativity aspect of it. And some of the questions I'm going to ask in these polls will be a little more general. There are a couple that are a little more targeted to a specific audience, and that's where I'll ask you to keep in mind that target audience filter. And then beyond today, those are just 3 good things to keep in mind. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try launching these live polls, because I know one thing we're all missing is that interactive piece of Wade, and hopefully these polls at least help get us there a little bit. And also I really believe that we have some great creativity and ideas that if we can just all pull it all together in the next 45 minutes, we can have a whole new word bank of ways to talk about technical assistance. I'll be able to save your responses, and then I'll work with Nicole on how to best share that with you all, so you can see these words and ideas and phrases that we come up with together. So with that, now is a great time to grab that phone or your other device, or just be able to get to your other monitor. And I want to make sure, Nicole, maybe would you let me know, I've got the first poll question up. Would you mind letting me know that it's up there and good to go?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you'll see at the top 2 ways to respond, and there's going to be a series of these polling questions. The first is to go to pollev.com/WSCC. Second option is to text WSCC to 22333. And so the first question, and some of you are already jumping in on this, I love it, is in one word, how does technical assistance make your customers feel? And this is a word cloud, which you can probably see already. So if you see a word up there that you're like, yes, that is exactly how it makes them feel, type it in again. You can type in, I think, up to 5 responses. The ones that get the most votes will be the largest on the screen. So right now we're seeing a lot of supported and empowered, also overwhelmed. That's understandable. Yeah, supported and empowered. Those are pretty amazing things to make a person feel. Empowered is getting bigger, as is supported. Also seeing informed, enlightened, perplexed, heard, regulated. It's an interesting one. Relieved. Alone. Hopefully not so much alone with once they know their district. But that's such a good one to think about, isn't it? Like, to go from feeling alone to, once you have a relationship with your district, to knowing you're not. That in itself is kind of a cool way to think about technical assistance. We'll give another couple seconds here. Nice. Relieved again, yeah. Very cool. Prepared. I like that. All right. Awesome. Well, let's move on. I'll save this word cloud to share with you, so you've got that whole collection of words. The next one, ooh, this is like branding. So when there's a product like Jeep or Coca-Cola, sometimes when they're starting their branding process, they ask, what if Jeep was a human? What kind of personality would it have? Jeep's personality is rugged. Coca-Cola as a brand, their personality is gregarious. So if technical assistants were a human, what kind of personality would it have? Oh, I love it. Sheldon Cooper, nerdy, knowledgeable, like the great kind of nerdy. Smart, caring, multitasker, extroverted, friendly, encouraging, relatable, the planner, friendly, robotic, good-natured, competent, acronyms, a good one to avoid. Santa Claus, bringing gifts. That's awesome. So a lot of supportive. Seeing that show up already a couple times in these. Ambitious, caring, teacher. These are great. Reliable. Yeah, some of these words are things that I recognize from the award nominee language this morning too. These are great. All right. Go to the next. Ooh, this is one of the more, this is on like the silly end of the spectrum, but still, I think it'll be fun. So we're gonna pretend we're creating a playlist or a mixtape, if you're old school, and it's called Technical Assistance. What song would you add to the list? What popular song do you feel like really fits that theme of technical assistance? So for example, when I asked my husband about this, who has worked for conservation districts, he suggested Lean on Me. We got Help by the Beatles. It's The End of the World by REM. That's where that sense of being relieved probably shows up. Never gonna give you up. Oh my God, this is awesome. I think we need to create this playlist for real, because this is awesome. You've Got a Friend in Me, Stand By Me, Take a Chance. A lot of this is to do with being a reliable friend, a trusting friend. It's interesting. I'll be there for you. Oh, Safety Dance. That's great. That's awesome. We'll give another minute for this playlist. And I think I'm probably going to look at some of the lyrics from these songs just to get a better sense of what it is about these songs that made you all think they'd be a good ad for our technical assistance playlist. Oh yay, there it is, Lean on Me. It's a good one. Oh, Don't Stop Me Now, yeah. This is gonna be a rockin' TA playlist. Maybe that's our next legislative strategy. You can have a technical assistance budget package that's only, aside from the number we're requesting, just a playlist of these songs. Oh, We Are Family. That's a great one. Okay. But Don't Stop Believing. I'm going to move on. Ooh, still coming in. Move on to the next question. Another one that's kind of to do with marketing and branding. If you had to depict technical assistance as a symbol or an image, what would it be? So it's almost like you're creating a logo for technical assistance. If there's one symbol, like a helping hand, a good starting one there. I'm going to guess that the poop is Craig Nelson, but I could be wrong. Helping hands, too, for that. A clipboard, an open book. I used my husband as a guinea pig for a lot of these questions since he's worked for a conservation district, and the image he said was like a weight being lifted from somebody's shoulders. Here's a handshake a couple times there, a shovel, a light bulb. It's a great one because it really is, it really has to do with actionable ideas. Muddy boots, a lot of handshakes. Which again, it's so interesting because these are all, I'm thinking you are having a similar experience maybe of seeing some of these with the shaking hands, and it's like, yeah, it's really about this relationship and sense of trust with another person, that they're entrusting some guidance about their land or their property or their operation with you, and those are just things that aren't typically captured in the way we talk about technical assistance. I love it. A heart, a fist bump. Love it. Go to the next poll. In one short phrase, what problem does technical assistance solve for a landowner or a land manager? So they may not know that this is even called technical assistance, but when you're providing what we refer to as technical assistance to somebody, what problem does it solve for them? Like regulation, it may be something that's protecting them or making them feel like they're safe from that risk. Saving them from confusion, giving them compliance, solving their greatest worry. That's huge. That's huge. Especially when you think about, this past year and all the other things that people have had to worry about this year, the idea that you can take that weight off somebody's shoulders, just giving them one less thing to worry about. It's huge. Uncertainty, funding, information overload, helping them wade through all that paperwork and information and programs to consider. Again, what keeps you up at night? That's great. Knowing where to start, not knowing what you don't know. Yeah. Viability, that's really great. Networking, again, that sense of not being alone. Helping natural resources, having too much information, knowing where to start, direction. They're great. Navigating, again, through complex processes, ensuring current issues aren't exacerbated, a plan. Great. Give another second on this and we'll go on to the next one. Yeah, someone knowledgeable to talk out ideas. We all like that. Roadmap to success. A lot here to do with like just finding your way, having someone to ask directions, which way to go, which way to consider. Awesome. And again, this is same question but different audience. In a short phrase, what problem does technical assistance solve for those who fund it? So for a lot of, at least through the commission, the technical assistance dollars are being approved by the governor's office and the legislature. But if you're a funder of technical assistance, what is the problem that it's going to help you solve? You might not even be the recipient of it yourself, but your constituents might be. Your resources in the state that you are a leader in are behavior change and connection to private landowners. Happy people are less disgruntled. Seriously, they can sleep at night and they have one less worry. They are going to be happier. Water quality could be just the natural resource issue itself, protecting resources for local economies, meeting the goals of a grant, fulfilling their mission and goals. Depends on the funder. Resources to constituents, professional service, excellent investment, customized solutions. Yeah, depending on your funder, whatever the natural resources that they care most about, I mean, chances are conservation work has so many co-benefits, it probably is going to touch on whatever they care about. Turning project dollars into success stories, high success rate, combining small projects into a larger impact. That's a great one. Reliability, a community-based voice to promote their mission. I love that. I love that connection between the funder and actually the communities that are going to be engaged and served by it. Yeah. A gift that keeps on giving. Great. Connection to resources to know where to direct further funds. Getting the funder's name out there. Yeah, in some cases. Again, boots on the ground. All right. Next poll. In just one word, what did landowners or land managers gain when they receive technical assistance services? And this is another word cloud. So if you see a word come up that somebody else has already mentioned and you're like, yes, feel free to write it again. It'll get bigger. It'll help us know which words are really resonating with more of you. And you can enter, I think, up to 5 times here. So if you've got like 5 words that come to mind, you really want to put them all in, just put them all in separately and they'll show up. Seeing a lot of expertise, knowledge, confidence, relief, support, local understanding, direction, community. That's so true. Building some community around conservation. I think that's partly what we all like about this work. I really like, I don't think I've ever used the word confidence to talk about technical assistance and the benefits of it, but it's so true. Empowerment, sounding board, solution, viability, a listener, Just knowing that you've been heard and understood. A cheerleader. Great. And keep this open another minute here. Great. So for funders, again, just a few words. What's one thing that you think many funders misunderstand about technical assistance? So these are folks who either have or could potentially fund technical assistance. What do they typically misunderstand about what it is? It's the long game, barriers, the time it takes to make change, all the partnerships it takes. Behaviors can change in smaller ways than just capital projects. A lot of things to do with timing and relationship building and how much work goes into that. Yeah. It's hard to measure. It makes it difficult to communicate. 2 years is not enough. The time needing to invest in relationships. And I can imagine from what you all are sharing here that the time needed to invest in those relationships, and then also what you get out of those relationships for years and years and years potentially moving forward. It isn't just necessarily one project. It can turn into a lifetime of stewardship practices in partnership with their district and on their own. You can't force people to make change. Always having new clients and customers, and then you have to start that relationship over. Maintenance funding is essential. Need for flexibility when working with landowners. Yes, especially in Washington. Really, really diverse geography and crops, people, landscapes. Sometimes it takes several technical assistance site visits before things happen. Right. And part of the reason I'm asking some of these questions is, when we do encounter a potential funder who misunderstands technical assistance, by having this list to think about ahead of time, if we know we're going into a potential conversation like that, it can help us think about, okay, is this going to be somebody who doesn't understand how the timing and how much benefit you get out of investing in those long-term relationships, and really thinking ahead of time about how you can talk about that to address it. So when you go in, you already have your messages planned to address some of these things that they misunderstand. It's helpful to have these written down in one spot. Yeah, requirements and contracts can be intimidating, for sure. Okay, so we're picturing a food pyramid now. So fruits and veggies are the foundation of a healthy diet in that food pyramid. If you had a similar pyramid for technical assistance, what would the foundation for technical assistance be? We've got science. It's another word cloud. So if you see something up there you want to kind of vote for, is like, yes, that's it. Feel free to type it again. Got science and listening. Ooh, what other service provides that kind of balance of listening and science? Pretty awesome. Relationships. Communication, expertise, partnership, education, persistence in time and patience. Skills, humor, that helps. That helps. Direction, support. Yeah, listening is still still a very popular choice here. That foundation, science, listening, and relationships. That's great. Okay. Next one. Okay, so this one's will take a little bit more time here if you need it. So if you had to come up with a comparable metaphor or simile to describe technical assistance, what could it be? And for example, one of the things I thought of was like, I also like watching movies, and so I thought of like film production. You don't just like roll out of bed one day and decide you're gonna shoot a movie today. You actually have to figure out, you write a script, you cast the characters, you have to get producers, you have to do site locations. You can't just launch like the time it takes to shoot a movie is really short in comparison to all that pre-production that takes place before. So are there other similes or metaphors that you could use for technical assistance? A ladder, nice. Getting you up to a lifetime of education. Planning a wedding. Seriously, you can't just, I mean, they have wedding planners for a reason. Like a big brother or sister who knows you and wants you to succeed and give advice. That is really sweet. Building a house, right? Yeah, or a blueprint for a building. Raising a child or many children. A therapist. Getting into that foundation of listening. Building blocks. Getting a degree. Legos, going along with that building blocks theme. Planning a long trip. These are great. So I don't know if you've had this experience, but for me, sometimes, especially for concepts that have been around a really long time and we have been talked about the same way for a long time, sometimes one of the more effective ways to reintroduce a topic in a new way is to try to come up with a new like simile or metaphor that you could use to liken it to and get somebody thinking about it in a new way. This is helpful. Continuing education, teaching, starting a business. That had come to mind too. The idea of how much work goes into a business plan in order for a business to be successful before you actually launch. Coaching, a salesman, a puzzle, putting those pieces together. All right. Tennis, like chiropractor. Nice. Making adjustments. Okay. Got a couple more. So you're talking to a potential funder who's fiscally conservative and extremely reserved about making investments of public funds. What's one reason you could give them that they should feel confident investing in technical assistance? So knowing that they've got their purse strings pretty tight, they really care about public investments, making sure that they're going to good use. What's one reason you could give them why technical assistance is still worth that investment of public funds? It's the public's money and the public gets it directly from CD technical assistance. There's really direct relation between the public money and the service that those communities get. That's great. The foundation for behavior change. When neighbors see change happening, they tend to jump on the bandwagon, getting those norms established. The value of technical assistance. They actually make a difference through technical assistance. It's creating an incentive to change. Yeah, landowners also contribute. The fund leveraging rate with conservation districts is awesome. I think in general, it's usually like every state dollar invested in districts is leveraged at least 4 times. Depending on the program, it's more. You have to start somewhere, and it's the best place to start. It's supporting local organizations and local communities. That's a big deal, especially if you're a legislator. You want to make sure that your funding is going to your constituents directly. All the outreach and education that goes along with it, great. The jobs, like local contractors, the history of success, great. So now you're talking to a potential funder who feels a sense of urgency to solve environmental issues in Washington, and their eagerness for action makes them wary of investments in planning and outreach. So kind of getting to what some of you already mentioned, with some funders misunderstanding the kind of value of the time that has to go into technical assistance. So if you're speaking to this person, they really want action now. Why should they still consider investing in technical assistance? Why is that still a good investment, even with the urgency of some of the natural resource issues we have? More likely to have a landowner invested long-term for project maintenance and impact over time. Every project has to start with planning and outreach. You can't get new customers without being strategic and focused. You can't do the action without community buy-in. Community buy-in, with over 50% of Washington state is privately owned, so all these references to those private landowner relationships you can't really achieve, especially with some of the issues, the magnitude of the issues. You won't be able to get there without their partnership. Failure to plan is Luke planning to fail. Oh, that's good. Rome wasn't built in a day. Yeah, a lot about building on that relationship for long-term success. Local support. Yeah, relationships and goodwill in order to succeed. Good things take time. Building community has a greater impact. Very true. The whole community is supportive of the work. It's creating a culture of conservation then, isn't it? Evidence-based process, more likely to succeed. Awesome. Okay. I've got a couple more, and then we'll just open it up for the last, 10, 15 minutes to have some dialogue and conversation, or just ideas that you all still have about how we can talk about technical assistance. So the second to last question: if Washingtonians were given a receipt of purchase for their investment in technical assistance work, so this is for the state funding that goes to technical assistance, that's taxpayer supported, they're getting a receipt, itemized receipt of what they're getting from their investment in technical assistance. What's one public benefit that would be listed on their receipt? And again, you can answer multiple items. You can respond at least, I think, 5 times. Clean water and water quality, soil fertility, landowner support, clean water. Again, whether or not you're the direct recipient of these services, these are all things that we all would benefit from. Locally grown food, quality of life, salmon recovery, number of acres improved. A lot to do with water quality, which is big in Washington state. Healthy forests. And again, you could, this is giving you a nice list of things to look at, and once you know who you're going to be speaking to, if it's an audience that really cares about forests, you can talk about all the aspects of forest stewardship and management that technical assistance assists with. If you know it's somebody who really cares about water quality, you just focus there. Community building, healthy plant communities, fresh air, climate change. And I just scrolling down here. I mean, it's not like the receipt would say any one of these individual things. It's this whole list. That's pretty amazing. Like, what else can you invest in? What else could you put my state tax dollars to? And I'd get a receipt like this. Not much. It's pretty awesome. Preservation of farmland. Backyard wildlife and habitat, community education, food security, getting a lot more attention with the past year. Okay, great. And then this is a free-for-all before we open it up. I've just in conversations with some of you and by friending some conservation district folks on Facebook, I'll see in your posts just ways that you talk about and describe your experience of technical assistance that makes me think about it in a different way, even though I've been in this position for I think 9 years, 8-9 years. And I'm still trying, like I've fallen into some bad habits with talking about technical assistance. And sometimes I'll see examples from other districts of like, oh, that's a different way. That's a more fun and engaging and accurate way of talking about technical assistance. So are there other effective ways that you have found for talking about and communicating the importance of technical assistance, whether or not you use that actual term technical assistance, because that in itself maybe falls a little flat. But are there other ways that you've found for talking about it, or once you experienced it or engaged with it, that you found really felt like an aha moment? I'm not seeing any responses yet. Resharing of diverse thoughts and ideas from other areas and organizations, not just in CD land. Give a person a fish and they'll eat for a day. Teach a person to fish and they'll eat forever. Oh, see, that's awesome. What a great way to talk about it. Guides, safe place to ask questions. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that locally led aspect of districts combined with TA, just making people feel safe to share what's going on with them, what they could be concerned about. That safety is big. Free resource to meet your goals. Social media. Fostering a deep connection with their land. That can be so meaningful, especially if it's been, whether they're first-time landowner or if it's a
multi-generational piece of property, knowing how to care for that. Providing a place to be heard. Talking about reaching goals on your property. Using everyday words, poop, not manure. We're their ally. That's great. We're ally to help them reach their goals. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to pause there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to save all these responses. I'm going to find a way to share them either, I think, on the WADE website, or I'll work with Nicole on that so we can all can use some of these responses and new ways of thinking about technical assistance when we have to do that moving forward, and see if we can find inspiration from each other on that. And I'm also, I know I'm going to use it to give it more thought myself. I would love to work more on creating more ways for us at the commission and us as a family to talk about this. And I think the ideas and creative ways that you've all shared today of how we could do that will be really helpful, of helping us find more meaningful ways to talk about technical assistance to get it that attention it deserves. And so that if it were ever on a taboo card, which maybe is doubtful, but if it were, that list of words underneath it would be a little more fun, a little more inspiring, and a little more accurate with what it actually feels like when someone is served by their conservation district. So I think I'm going to pause here. We've got 10 minutes before noon, and just open it up if anybody has questions or comments, things they want to share related to technical assistance. Just going to, I'm not sure if the best way, are we doing raised hands or chat? I'm not sure what works best.
Yeah,
Nicole or Nikki.
Sure,
Yeah, go
Laura.
ahead.
I'll help you moderate questions here. And number one, we already had someone ask for if you'd actually make that playlist for Reels and maybe share it via Spotify. Just saying, that'd be pretty awesome.
Yes.
And yeah, just to remind folks, two ways to ask questions here. Please put your questions for Laura into the questions box or raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can ask your question directly to Laura and to the group. I do also want to say, Laura, many comments in here that this was a great session. This is really interesting. Appreciate this conversation so far. Okay, here was like, maybe a question not about the content, but certainly about Pull Everywhere. Someone was asking about the cost for Pull Everywhere. I want to say it's about $500 to $600 a year, if I remember correctly. Is that
the version we have? There's different levels. The version I used for this session, I think it's 120 or 125 per year. And that there's a free version, but I think it limits the number of responses to 25. With the level we have at the commission, it's up to 700 responses. I think there's two other levels above what we pay for, and I don't know all of the services and capabilities you get with that, but this one is like 125 for the year.
Thanks, Laura. Other questions from folks, please put them in the questions box, raise your hand. Nikki, if you have any questions you want to get conversation rolling with too, feel free to chime in.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Well, I just want to say thank you, Laura. This was a wonderful presentation and I think, got the wheels turning. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on, I thought this was a really great process to go through. And how we could apply this process to rebranding some of the other ways we talk about CD work.
Sure, yeah. I think that, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of work that we do and that conservation districts do that has been around for a while. And so kind of thinking about how we talk about it in really typical ways may not work because we might have already done that, in the over 75-year history of districts. So trying to come up with some really creative, fun ways to get you thinking about a concept that maybe you've thought about for a long time can help you sort of bring new perspective to it. And you'll notice, some of the questions I asked actually they're from some questions that you might get asked if you were launching a new product and you were trying to create your brand for that product, if you're about to launch an ad campaign or do some marketing. There's some marketing questions out there that can help you, even though we're not necessarily selling a product, but we are trying to encourage people to voluntarily participate or invest some funding in our work. And so looking up some marketing and branding questions and applying them to other aspects of your work it can help you spark different ideas and ways of thinking about something you've done for a while. And then also asking the same question about an aspect of your work, but applying it for different audiences. So if you're a district that is involved with education, does a lot of K-12 work, you might think about, how you would talk about the value of that work to, like a funder who, their top priority is something to do with wildfire, or how you would talk about the value of that work to somebody who, maybe doesn't have students or doesn't have children that are in the school system in their community and why they should still care about the work that you're doing there.
And so you could talk about maybe your education does have a forestry aspect to it. So you don't have to talk about all the other water quality and watershed work lessons that you provide, but you would just focus on the forestry part of it. So I think asking questions that help you frame your work for your specific audience, and then asking like questions to get the creativity flowing about different ways you can talk about your work can be really helpful.
Thanks, Laura.
No other questions in the questions box at this time, but if folks want to raise your hand, I can unmute you. We did have another comment that came in that just said, thank you very much, Laura. It was a very engaging, beneficial session, delivered in a fun and creative way. And I would also echo that. This was a really unique, even your content was amazing, but I appreciate what you just talked about using this process, perhaps even for reinvigorating thought or delivery within a conservation district program. So that was really nice way to go through that. And my question for you, how are you going to be using all of this content that you just collected from folks?
Yeah, I'm going to use it in a couple ways. First is going to be, other than sharing it with the districts, I want to look through it and then really look through how we've talked about technical assistance and everything from our state budget requests on behalf of conservation districts to how we've talked about it in our fact sheets. I'm probably going to share it with our policy team who has these one-on-one conversations about technical assistance with legislators who make decisions about funding for our work. And just see if there's ways we can improve how we have been talking about it, and some messaging that we could come up with that would be a little bit more effective. We have some talking points in the marketing toolkit on the Commission's website for more general things like, the value, what are conservation districts, why are they important, the value of voluntary conservation in general. But eventually I would love to have some good talking points about technical assistance to make it more fun and really just, it doesn't fall flat, because it shouldn't. It's so important. It's vital to the work the district's doing. Is vital to the conservation of natural resources that they're charged with. So I would love to come up with some talking points and then make those available for districts as well. I don't have all the pieces of that plan put together yet, but that's the long-term goal, and that this is a great starting place for me to at least start scrubbing some of our previous messaging and making it more engaging.